before anything else, like when you visit someone like Snoop and you provide a tangerine strain, is there like a different, is there like a pressure into someone like, oh, I'm visiting Willie Nelson, I gotta get him like this Hawaiian Kush meets Northern Cali Kush?
It's never really any pressure, you know what I'm saying? It's more along the lines, it's, you know, when you come across something good, you want to share it with your good homies who you know are connoisseurs and might appreciate it. So it's more along the lines of, instead of, man, I hope he likes this, it's like, I can't wait to see the look on his face.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When he tastes the flavor of it, you know what I'm saying?
But is it a case though where, like me, I'm a big foodie, like I like good, let's say Chinese food, but do you sometimes crave like the Panda Express, like the other lower tier per se? No
Never.
disrespect to the other. So it's all Bentley and Ferraris now at this point.
Yeah, you know, since I've been smoking OG Kush since probably 97, 98, around that time. Late 97, early 98, when we got a hold of it. After that, it was hard to smoke anything, you know, beneath that. And for a long time, there was very little that can rival it. You know what I mean? Now you have all these different flavors, these exotic flavors, these hybrids that are really good. So it's like there's not just one great weed in town anymore. There's like several great strains. So, you know, when you get a good one that's exotic and maybe, you know, a lot of people don't have it, you want to share it with your good friends, you know what I'm saying? And
right.
and pretty much that's how it is. And when we catch the boo-boo, we're like, oh man, I wouldn't even give this to my worst enemy. You know? Right. So I never get like those nostalgic feelings. Let me smoke some stress, like, you know, for back in the day purposes. Forget that, man. I know that shit tastes awful, so I don't even want it.
It's all Bentley now.
Yeah.
Is finding the right strain, like or the hybrid blend, kind of like the same way finding the ill joint in SoundCloud? There's so many mixes, or is it like kind of funneling it in?
Yeah, there's so many out there now. You know, it's like music. You have a lot of guys out there producing music, some good, some bad, and it's the same thing with flour and concentrates. And there's a lot of good stuff out there. You could tell by the way that, you know, it looks, but sometimes that's deceiving too. So sometimes you have to just smoke it and taste it for yourself. But, you know, there's a lot of people that have stepped their game up in the cultivation aspect of the game, the curing process, the flush out process, the grooming part. There's a lot of people that have become masters at that, and they make the flower look amazing, you know. And that's what you look for, somebody that cares that much that they make that flower look amazing. So when you look at it, it's undeniable. It's not really leafy. You see the trichomes, it's tight, it smells good, it's not over dried, it's not under dried, and it's flushed out completely. You know, that's what we look for. And if you've been smoking a long time, you could tell when somebody's put that kind of care in.
In the end though, does Cali hold the torch?
Yes, they do. Truly, we hold the torch here. A lot of people will argue that throughout the country and throughout the world, but it is just the plain fact. We have pretty much one of the best climates for it, if not the best. Our growers from Northern Cali to Southern Cali have the best science, I think, the best formula for creating these exotics and these different flavors. And I stand by that. I haven't been anywhere in the world that has had herb that was better. I've been places that have really good herb that rival what we have here, but not better, and not as much. Like here in Cali, there's several great strains. I would say there's probably at least 25 top-notch strains that nowhere else in this country or in the world could touch these particular strains. But if you go to places around the country, there are growers there now, those special ones that grow it like we do here in Cali. It's just there's so few of them in comparison. So that's really what it is that you have a lot of people out there with talent, but maybe they don't have the knowledge that our guys do here. And that was the same thing that was the case when Holland was the big game. You know, everybody looked to Holland as the mecca and the epicenter of education towards cultivation because they did it so freely, you know. But somewhere along the line, California caught up, and to me, and if you ask some of the people out there in Holland, they'll tell you the best weed in the world is right here in California.
So let's say the Kobe Bryant of weed is Cali, and the second place is a football field of dog shit as a second place distance. What would be the second place?
That's hard to say because, like I said, there's a lot of places that have stepped up, but you know, a lot of people would easily say Denver and Washington. You know, because of their legislation and why it's, you know, it's so open there now that they have legalization in place, so their law's a little bit more lenient, a little bit more open for them to cultivate. But again, you know, with Denver, it's a different climate over there. Same thing in Washington. But I think if you have the guys with the right knowledge and the right education of how you cultivate this particular flower or plant, whatever, you know, they could stand to be the best too. It's just about it spreading over there the way that it spread in California here, and people wanting to actually be known for being great growers, not just for having a bunch of flower, but having the best flower. And I think that you know, Denver and Washington can make a great case,
Strong case, right?
A strong case for being number 2 together.
Now, themically, with BrealTV, you know, that's the first thing they think of, right? Like weed centric, but really it's a backdrop of a continuum of the golden era culture now.
Right.
How do you find your talent, or how does talent become part of the Be Real fam?
Well, we've become just a platform for that golden era and for the new school. I mean, we don't discriminate on any of it because music is music. I like it all. You know, I can't sit here and say, like some of my peers, that I don't fuck with the new shit, because I do. I strongly believe that some of these new cats are doing some solid shit, and I would gladly collaborate with them, you know. So for the platform that we built here with BrealTV, we looked at it like we're trying to be the platform that gives everybody a look. Not like radio where it's limited to the looks they can give. We want to give a look to everybody. There's no favoritism. It's not like, oh, we only want raw hip-hop here, or, you know, that sort of role. Hey, we want hip-hop here, we want pop here, we want reggae here, we want metal here, we want everything here. So, you know, we're trying to extend beyond what people think we are, and be a little bit out of the box in comparison to what other people are doing in the nature of doing, you know, internet-based blog sites or entertainment sites and whatnot, you know. So we're trying to lend ourselves to everybody in that regard.
So on I need your opinion on this because I'm pushing 40, so I come from the golden era ear.
Right.
But don't you feel the novelty of remixes is done because the kids, all they do is remix?
Well, it's one of those things that when something becomes popular, sometimes people oversaturate, you know, the game with what is popular. But still, even so, you'll still have mixtapes out there or remixes out there that are undeniable. And it's, you got to be willing to sift through all the bullshit that you have to find those. You know, a lot of stuff in the music industry has become played out. You know, the old format of how you put a record out, you know, some would say that's done, but they keep doing it because to a degree it still works, you know. So I think it, you know, it's just gonna evolve until somebody does something different, and somebody calls it something different, and then and then that'll be the next popular move that people oversaturate. But to me, yeah, I mean, I think remixes will always exist. You know, I strongly believe that if you come with something different, you know, no matter how many people are doing these remixes, it's always who has the best one.
I'm going to make a statement, and I want you to react to this. The reason why cats like K-Dot are so supreme, because aside from their talent, is this generation, they don't feel. It's not like the pressure of an MPC pad. Everything's digital. Oh, I got 50 likes. Oh, I got 3 reblogs on a mixtape by big dudes. Do you think that's to a certain extent why there's a lack of MCs, because there's so much digital distraction?
Well, I think there's just a disconnect period because the bridge between the old school and the new school for so long was broken. So the new school really didn't give a shit about being educated about the game that they do. They just do it. You know, hey, this is what I do because I love to do it. This is me. You know, I want to be famous. I want to say shit. I want to, like, you know, tour. I want to be an artist. You know, and this is the way that they're doing it these days. You know, and you know, the artists back in our time in the golden era, you had to pay dues in a different way to get on. You know, you just couldn't get on. You just couldn't just make a record and make a mixtape and put it out there the way that people do. There was a certain grind and a certain stamp that you had to have from other people to get put on, and these days that doesn't exist. And I think a lot of the cats from my generation resent that fact that these young bucks have it so easy and they don't really know the game the way that we had to learn the game. But hey, that's the way the business evolves, and you can't blame them for that. You have to blame the business. You have to blame the lack of education and take the responsibility, as the artists before us educated us to a degree. They passed the torches to us. They weren't salty with some of us that were coming in with this new style of hip hop. For some reason, our generation has become salty with this new generation. They don't want to pass no torches, don't want to give no education, don't want to give no endorsement. So those bridges were burned for such a long time. So now you have hip hop A, hip hop B, and people have to choose which style of hip hop they like.
To a certain extent, though, the culture of 70s to, let's say, 98, there weren't plugins to help give out polyrhythmic patterns.
Right.
There weren't so much technology to help you produce something.
You're speaking to the electronic style of production now, right?
Right.
So you think about it like this, right?
Which the TR-808, by the way, that came from our era.
Exactly. So this is just a simpler way to get that sound into the production. All these different plugins. It made it so that, you know, producing a mixtape or whatever, you know, one song or an album, made it easier for anyone to do it, and it made it more affordable so that you don't got to spend all this fucking money.
Right.
In some points, you sacrifice the dynamics of listening to hip hop, and the vibe is through those dynamics, through those different samples that are chopped together to make this track. You know what I mean? That part is lost, because that was an art form that a lot of producers were skilled at and they were masters at. But when some of these artists that we were sampling from are taking all of our publishing for these samples, it pretty much sabotages the style of production which some of these great producers are known for. So now these young guys, seeing that the older producers are getting tapped for their publishing because of all the samples, they say, well, you know what, I'm not going to go that way because I want all my publishing. I'm going to fuck with this keyboard and learn how to do this and this and that. And now you have this new style of production without the layers, without the samples. Why? Because people don't want to give up half of their publishing to these ungrateful bastards that you sample from, and they end up selling back catalog on, but they're still salty with you because you sampled their shit, and they want to take half of your writing, half of your publishing. You know, that's why a lot of people have leaned away from using samples, unless you chop them to a degree that they can't be recognized.
Right.
You know, and I think that's one of the parts why you've seen such a switch in the production of hip hop music.
Tons of hi-hats. Boy, do they push the fuck out of the hi-hats.
Hi-hats, 808s, and rim shots.
So before we wrap, let's talk about Mile High. And this is really homage to you. When war heroes become amputees, there's a thing called phantom limb syndrome.
Yeah.
Where The arm's gone, but there's
but
still
you
an
still
itch.
think it's there. Yeah, the itch is there.
Is it wrong for me to theorize that Mile High, you just released yesterday, that is a case of phantom limb syndrome for the culture and being an MC and a producer?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was something like with the Prescription album. It was something that I wanted to do different, something that sonically we don't do with Cypress Hill, and that I haven't done with in my hip hop career. But with the weed stuff, it wasn't necessarily an itch per se. It was the fact that I was doing this album as Dr. Green Thumb, and I wanted it to be all about the culture. And Mile High was, I think, probably one of the first songs we recorded on the album. And we kind of did it like a duality thing, because I'm a Gemini and Dr. Green Thumb is my alter ego, right? So we went from Be Real on that album into Dr. Green Thumb, and the Mile High is one of the first Be Real songs. So it's Be Real going into Dr. Green Thumb from that song, and just embracing that culture, not doing a reference, not doing one song on an album so that I could keep the weed heads happy. No, this was a whole fucking album for them, for that culture, speaking to it, celebrating the fact that we have 2 states legal and 18 others with legislation, and a few more about to roll over, and two more states becoming legal in Portland and Alaska, and even around the world. You got Uruguay, you got Spain, and a few others that are going to roll into legalization. So this album is a celebration of that culture. So it was more like, it was a hell of a niche.
Ironically, you use synths and pads
Yes,
are
I
from
did.
the analog era. Which I appreciate.
Yeah, we used a little bit of everything. Yeah,
right. You blended both modern and I don't want to say classic, because it still sounds good and it could be in heavy utility. I know Miss Producer Laura and publicist Laura want you out, but let me put you on blast real
Okay.
quick. All right,
Let's go.
Here we go. Jimmy Iovine or Russell Simmons?
Ooh, Jimmy Iovine.
Real
or
easy
Russell
for you, right?
Simmons.
That's easy.
That's Russell Simmons.
Why Russ?
Because he pioneered this shit. He showed us all that, he started completely independent, from a management company. Yeah, dorm room, management company, record company, and then eventually to being an entrepreneur. He did all that from scratch, from the bottom. And it would be without saying that everybody had to be inspired by the moves that this guy did, because if he hadn't, a lot of us wouldn't know to make the moves that we made as businessmen outside of artists. And Russell Simmons, I think, was one of the first guys that showed us that.
Jay-Z 1.0, technically the corporatization, right?
The first, well, you can't even say the first Jay-Z, because Russell Simmons is a man all his own. He was the template for guys like Jay-Z and 50 Cent and the rest of us to follow.
Okay. If you had to choose to represent Detroit, the D, is it Eminem or Dilla?
That's a fucking question.
Of course, we're putting you on blast, dude. I gotta put you on blast that way, man.
That's so cold-blooded of you. Well,
Plug 1, 2, man. That's how we do our interviews.
Because Eminem is my favorite MC of all time, and I think I've said that many a times. Him and KRS-One are my 2 favorites of all time. So it's, as a fan, I would say Eminem, but in reality, gotta give it to Dilla.
Okay, let's seg into that. Chris One or Public Enemy?
Oh, you're fucking cold-blooded.
Yes, sir. That's how we roll,
Cold-blooded.
man.
These are my 2 teachers, man. Chuck D and KRS-One. Shit. But I'm gonna have to go with KRS-One.
Okay, Danny Trejo or Edward James Olmos?
That's cold-blooded too.
This is jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. I'm wearing a Muay Thai shirt here, man.
Danny's my fucking homie, but I gotta go with the OG, fucking Edward James. Almost.
Okay, finally, Spike Lee or John Singleton?
Psst, John Singleton.
Why John Singleton? Because it seems like Spike's body of work stretches.
I'm a fan of Spike,
And I'm really swaying you one direction by the
No,
way I'm manipulating.
No. I'm a fan of Spike. I appreciate his work, but I mean, John Singleton with Menace to Society, that that was like something that captured the West Coast like brilliantly. Like the motherfuckers was living this life like that, no exaggeration.
Who got snaps for the Petro? That's West Coast. Like
That's
when people used to misconstrue you guys, when I heard puto, I'm like, no, they're not East Coast.
Yeah,
they're from the West.
Oh, we had a little bit of East Coast influence though, because we were big fans of everything East Coast. We were NWA fans, and a lot of groups out here that we loved, but realistically we were East Coast fans, like EPMD, Run DMC, Public Enemy, KRS-One, and all those guys. We were following that. So our sound was very East Coast-ish, but our style in which we were kicking our lyrics and our content was a combination of East meets West, or West meets East, if you will. So a lot of people were confused in the beginning, like, where are they fucking actually from? Because we called ourselves after Cypress Hill, which there's a place in New York called Cypress Hill, so people were thrown off. But yeah, we're West Coast, and John Singleton captured that West Coast vibe, what was happening at that time in that movie, and to me that was big. You could never forget a lot of that shit.
The lovely publicist Laura, can we go 5 more? B, can you go 5
I'll give
more?
you 3.
Give me 3 more?
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to the case of music production, do you stand by using analog and then bounce and mix to Pro Tools, or is it now you have to be practical and go via laptop production and music production?
Well, if I'm doing it, if it's me, I'm doing a combination, of some plugins and analog. That's because that's just the way that I do it. But I don't really dictate to any producer who's producing music for me as to how they do it. You know what I mean? Because some people like using all the old shit. Some people can't stand using all the old shit. It's too expensive and, too much fuckery for them. So they try to keep it simple. But for me, as long as I feel the beat, no matter how it's made at the end, I don't give a shit what they used. As long as I can feel it and people can feel it after we put it down. You know what I mean? But there's something to be said about going to an actual studio, using a fucking SSL or an Eve board and all that board shit, all the analog stuff, because it gives you a sound that is so big, warm. And so you can go one or the other. People, your average person out there cannot tell the difference. Only people that do music can really tell, and people that are around music like that, like, those are the folks that can tell. But the average person out there that are listening, they're not listening that deep, so they can't really tell.
So where are the links that people can find you? BrealTV, aside from that?
Yeah, I mean, we do our Dr. Green Thumb broadcasts on BrealTV Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is at www.breal.tv, or they can catch me at Instagram. It's just simply BReal, BREAL. And the rest is pretty much similar, man. I'm easy to find.